Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Principles and Strategies in Teaching Mathematics. I am April May B. Sinabong, BS Ed Mathematics, your reporter for today. First, we have learning objectives. Learning objectives at the end of the lesson, the students should be able to design learning activities utilizing constructivism and discovery learning. What is constructivism and discovery learning? The discovery learning method is a constructivist theory, meaning it is based on the idea that students construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and reflecting on those experiences. Students interact with their environment by exploring and manipulating objects, wrestling with questions and controversies, or performing experiments. Willy Wonka very famously said, "We are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams." Willy Wonka was a constructivist and his factory constantly used the discovery learning method. Background and characteristic. The discovery learning method is an active, hands-on style of learning originated by Jerome Bruner in the 1960s. Bruner emphasized that we should be learning by doing. Implementing across the curriculum. Even though most people associate the discovery learning method with science classes, it can be applied to all parts of a curriculum. In an English class, for example, teachers may introduce the dreaded Shakespeare unit with list of vocabulary for each act and make students fill out a worksheet while watching a biographical video about Shakespeare and the Globe Theatre. Why educator training is important. The discovery learning method, if used incorrectly, can also be a barrier to learning. If teachers are having activities just for the sake of having activities, then students will not learn concepts. And successfully implementing the discovery learning method in the classroom. To effectively use the discovery learning method in a classroom, a teacher needs to not only be flexible but also well prepared, organized, and have an understanding of how what is discovered in class is educationally valuable and can lead to further investigations for the student. And here are the principles of constructivism. There are many specific elements and principles of constructivism that shape the way the theory works and apply to students. Learn about the different principles of constructivism and how they make up the whole theory. First is knowledge is constructed. This is the basic principle, meaning that knowledge is built upon other knowledge. Students take pieces and put them together in their own unique way, building something different than what another student will build. The student's previous knowledge, experiences, beliefs, and insights are all important foundation for their continued learning. The second is people learn to learn as they learn. Learning involves constructing meaning and systems of meaning. For example, if a student is learning the chronology of dates for a series of historical events at the same time, they are learning the meaning of chronology. If a student is writing a paper about history, they are also learning principles of grammar and writing as well. Each thing we learn gives us a better understanding of other things in the future. Next is learning is an active process. Learning involves sensory input to construct meaning. The learner needs to do something in order to learn. It's not a passive activity. Learner needs to engage in the world so they are actively involved in their own learning and development. You can't just sit and expect to be told things and learn. You need to engage in discussions, reading, activities, and etc. Learning is a social activity. Learning is directly associated to our connection with other people. Our teachers, our family, our peers, and our acquaintances impact our learning. Educators are more likely to be successful as they understand that peer involvement is key in learning. Isolating learnings isn't the best way to help students learn and grow together. Progressive education recognizes that social interaction is key to learning and they use conversation, interaction, and group applications to help students retain their knowledge. Learning is contextual. Students don't learn isolated facts and theories separate from the rest of our lives. We learn in ways connected to things we already know, what we believe, and more. The things we learn and the points we tend to remember are connected to the things going on around us. Knowledge is personal because constructivism is based on your own experiences and beliefs. Knowledge become a personal affair. Each person will have their own prior knowledge and experiences to bring to the table. So the way and things people learn and gain from education will all be very different. Learning exists in the mind. Hands-on experiences and physical actions are necessary for learning, but those elements aren't enough. Engaging the mind is key to successful learning. Learning needs to involve activities for the mind, not just our hands. Mental experiences are needed for retaining knowledge. The last is motivation is key to learning. Students are unable to learn if they are unmotivated. Educators need to have ways to engage and motivate learners to activate their minds and help them be excited about education. Without motivation, it's difficult for learners to reach into their past experience and make connections for new learning. Types of constructivism. There are different types of constructivism that educators can use to find success with this learning theory. First is cognitive. Cognitive constructivism focuses on the idea that learning should be related to the learner's stage of cognitive development. This method works to help students in learning new information by connecting it to things they already know, enabling them to make modifications in their existing intelligence to accommodate the new information. Cognitive constructivism comes from the work of Jean Piaget and his research on cognitive development in children. The second is social. Social constructivism focuses on the collaborative nature of learning. Knowledge develops from how people interact with each other, their culture, and society at large. Students rely on others to help create their building blocks, and learning from others helps them construct their own knowledge and reality. Social constructivism comes from Lev Vygotsky and is closely connected to cognitive constructivism with the added element of societal and peer influence. And the last one is radical. Radical constructivism is very different from cognitive and social constructivism. It focuses on the idea that learners and the knowledge they construct tell us nothing real, only help us function in our environment. The overall idea is that knowledge is invented, not discovered. The things we bring to the table make it impossible for us to have truth, only interpretations of knowledge. This theory was developed by Ernst von Glaserfeld in 1974. And constructivism in education. It's important to understand how teachers can apply constructivism inside their classroom to create a unique learning environment for students. In constructivist classrooms, the teacher has a role to create a collaborative environment where students are actively involved in their own learning. Teachers are more facilitators of learning than actual instructors. Teachers must work to understand the pre-existing conception and understanding of students, then work to incorporate knowledge within those areas. Teachers will also need to adjust their teaching to match the learner's level of understanding. Constructivist classroom rely on four case areas to be successful. First is shared knowledge between teachers and students. And the second is shared authority between teachers and students. The third one is teachers act as guide or facilitator. And the last one is learning groups consist of small numbers of students. How developmental psychology shapes learning. One of the earliest proponents of constructivism was Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget, whose work centered around children's cognitive development. Piaget's theories, popularized in the 1960s on the developmental stages of childhood, are still used in contemporary psychology. He observed that children's interaction with the world and their sense of self corresponded to certain ages. For instance, Through sensations from birth, a child has a basic interactions with the world. From 2 years old, they use language and play. They use logical reasoning from age 7 and abstract reasoning from age 11. Using the zone for learning. Imagine asking 10-year-old students to go about adding every number from 1 to 100. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 and onwards. They could theoretically do this by brute force addition, which will likely bore and frustrate them. A constructivist-inspired teachers might instead ask, is there a faster way of doing it? And is there a pattern of numbers? With a bit of help, some students might see that every number pairs with a corresponding number to add to 101, 1 plus 100, 2 plus 99, 3 plus 98. They end up with 50 pairs of 101 for a much easier, faster sum of 50 times 101. The pattern and easy multiplication might not have come intuitively or even at all to most students, but facilitation by the teacher pushes their existing knowledge into a meaningful learning experience using a completely mundane problem. It then becomes a process of discovery rather than monotonous addition. The importance of group works. Learning methods based on constructivism primarily use group work. The emphasis is on students building their understanding of a topic or issue collaboratively. Imagine a science class exploring gravity. The question of the day is, do objects drop at different speeds? The teacher could facilitate this activity by asking, what could we drop? What do you think will happen if we drop these two objects at the same time? How could we measure this? Then, the teacher would give students the chance to conduct this experiment themselves. By doing this, teachers allow students to build on their individual strengths as they discover a concept and work at their own pace. In conclusion, overall, the discovery method is highly supported by educational psychologists. They agree with Kant, Piaget, Vygotsky, and Brunner, as well as educational philosopher Dewey, that learning is based on knowing and doing. If a teacher takes into consideration that a child already has some prior knowledge, then the teacher will be able to show students how their lives are connected to the content without having to work to create that connection. It takes work to successfully use the discovery learning method in the classroom, and teachers have to be careful to not have class activities just for the sake of having activities. The discovery learning method is hands-on, focuses on the process, and discourages students to look for solutions. Instead of just teaching students to memorize rules or concepts, these methods lets them apply ideas to their lives, creating memorable lessons that will help turn them into lifelong learners. Thank you for listening, and once again, good morning.